Hello and welcome to Avatar Tea Times podcast with your hosts Beav and
Jess.
back for another week.
Back for another week. Cheers,
Yeah.
baby.
Cheers, babe.
Let's go. We are really excited
Yeah.
for this to be doing episode number 3, the Southern Air Temple.
Yeah, and when we were watching it, we're just going to cover this one episode.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not really sure. We're kind of playing it by ear on how we want to do all our episodes and if we want to just kind of like recap, break down the episodes but we're kind of just playing it by ear, seeing how we feel. And today we just wanted to do episode 3.
Yeah.
We had a lot of cool insights. So
Well, it's just such a cool episode.
it is.
Yeah, and during the episode, we kind of looked at each other and we're like, we're just doing this
Yeah,
one.
let's just do this
And
one.
I did want to mention that, it is like going through the process of watching it and with the idea of podcasting and taking the insights. It's been really cool
It has
this
been
way
really
to take
cool.
notes. And I think that we were just excited both to do this episode because we were like, man, this is really emotional.
It is
There's
really
so many moving
emotional.
pieces that happen in this show. And I would say from the first 2 episodes to this episode 3, it's already changed a lot where
Right.
it's still for kids and still cool. And I mean, in this episode you get a really cool view, like for the first time, of actual bending against each other.
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
But I just feel like after the 2 episodes, they're just like, okay, let's really storytell.
Yeah. And it is just like what we talked about last time. It's cool like watching it and knowing what the outcome is, like knowing what happens in the rest of the seasons and seeing how the characters are once again, cuz I mean season 1 especially and all of these episodes we're getting introduced to the characters, and so it's interesting looking back and knowing how these characters develop and then looking at how they started.
Yeah.
You know, and again relating it to how we all are, reflecting on our own lives, on how much you can relate to all stages
of
of these
all
characters.
All characters. I mean, you get to see some really cool stuff even in this, as early as episode 3, of who these characters are. And we're introduced to a couple more key characters in this episode. Very key characters, and one kind of funny, like, interesting take that I've never taken before, but just kind of watching videos and stuff on Avatar, just kind of a theory of what one character is. But yeah, I do think it's interesting in this one. So they open and it has a recap of the first 2.
Yes.
And it starts with Katara like kind of reminding Aang that she just doesn't know either. Like, if they, like, she's just reminding him that, like, she knows that there's a war going on, and she's seen firsthand in her life how brutal the Fire Nation can be. And so she doesn't really know what they'll find when they're traveling to the Southern Air Temple, but she knows what the Fire Nation is capable of. And so she's just like, it's a recap, and it just fits so perfectly into, now they're in the beginning of episode 3, they're traveling on Appa there to the Southern Air Temple where Aang's from.
Yeah. Honestly, I like that recap too, because she brings back the legend of the avatars and how he needs to first master water, then earth, then fire. So we kind of see this like, oh, there's this cycle to the avatars. And so as we go into the Southern Air Temple, we see how that is applied.
Yeah.
And how that has been for, I don't know, since the beginning of the Avatar.
Yeah, something that I kind of thought about that I find a little interesting is that still at this point, Sokka is just like, whoa, like, what are you guys do with all this magic? Like,
Yeah,
what are we gonna find
it's
there? All
weird.
this, like, everything is just so weird. And it's interesting that even stories about the Avatar, like Katara, it seems like she probably had people telling her or like had to search for like stories about the Avatar, but Sokka's just like doesn't believe it.
He doesn't.
Yeah, he does. He's just like, okay, whatever. Like,
yeah,
he's just on for like along for the ride, but he's not really like believing everything and what Aang claims to be, and he might even still think that his grand is kind of crazy, and he's just like, all right, whatever. I'm along for the ride so that we can get Katara to the northern water tribe,
and wants to protect her again. I mean, it goes to show, just like that very first scene, they are like, obviously, like, it starts out with them like camping in like their campsite or whatever, and Sokka's still sleeping, and Aang and Katara are ready to go. They're excited, and Sokka's just like sleeping. What he worries about is food, and he's just that's what he's more like focused on.
Yeah,
you know,
Sokka and Katara, like especially in this, and we'll get into towards like the end of this episode of what happens. They really are like the mother and father of the group in a way.
They are, yeah.
So that's interesting. You get to kind of see it. Like Sokka, he focuses on really like what they need to do right now. Like first things first, we need to eat. You know, because Aang and Katara was just like, oh, in Firebender, I heard this and this. It's like campfire stories, you know.
Right.
And they're just like, and this is what Aang needs to do. He needs to master all the 4 elements. And Sokka's just like, okay, first we need to get some food.
Right.
So he's very like practical and logical. And Aang and Katara.
Katara is like that motherly aspects. Like, so as they're that feminine energy. So as they're going into, they go into the air temples, and they're starting to make their way, and even the conversations before they like enter into the air temple nation, the air nation, essentially.
He's seeing like things he's like, oh, we're close.
We're close.
You can see that there.
And Katara and Sokka even had these like previous conversations where they're like, she's just like really concerned and really wants to be careful, just is very careful about his emotions in regards to seeing the air temple, because she just knows how devastating it was. And we also learned that, we did learn that the mom died from the Fire Nation, but again, we are like reminded that the mom was killed from the Fire Nation. So she just is very like motherly in regards to his feelings. In regards to that.
Just the Fire Nation in general is kind of like a sore topic for her.
For both of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I saw just thought about when Katara's telling him, just like, you know, we don't know what the Fire Nation did or like what happened or anything. And still at this moment, even like the end of episode 2, Aang's in like a form of denial.
He is in a form of denial.
And I thought it was interesting because it like the flashback, it's like, well, how long did you think that you were gone for? And he's like, I don't know, like a couple days.
Right.
And so he's obviously just like, I don't know what's going on, but everything will be all right. And he's kind of, he's in denial for sure.
Well, like 100 years when you're young, like I'm thinking about it now, like when I'm young, like 100 years. Oh yeah, 100 years. Okay, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe he can't even grasp that because he's only 12.
Yeah.
You know, he's so young that.
Maybe he can't.
But I do think that like he's trying to stay positive. He's trying to stay really positive, but he knows like something.
He knows something might be, but he also, I think, just believes in the fact that that air nomads, and they're powerful as well. They have airbending, and also he says that like in order to even get to the air temples, you have to have a flying air bison. Yeah. And so he's like, I don't think the Fire Nation has those, you know, and that concept of it.
Which would make sense because, you know, like he grew up for 12 years knowing like where their temples are,
right,
and knowing that people can't get to it. But I also think that just goes to show that he doesn't really understand. None of them really understand how driven the Fire Nation is,
right,
and that they're constantly trying to expand, and they're trying to take over the whole world.
They are.
So
maybe they don't even understand that concept of wanting to conquer.
Yeah, they're
know?
still very like childish. I think that in this episode it does make a little shift,
does.
that they're just kids, and then then like as we'll get into, they kind of just are like, wow, this is a big job.
This is a
for
big
both
job.
sides, which kind of leads me into the cut to
Yeah.
Zuko. And
Right,
then,
right. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Which introduces us to the first person, who's a huge character in this first season.
Yeah.
And we get introduced to the one, the only General Zhao.
Yeah.
Is it General or Commander? Commander Zhao.
Well,
Commander Zhao.
Well, that's what I found interesting is he's Captain Zhao to Zuko.
Right.
So
at first,
yeah,
and
so
then he got promoted.
A little bit about background of why they meet this character is because from the second episode, their ship, Aang hit that iceberg into them, and so they have to go get and stop at a harbor to make repairs on their ship. And it so happens to be this Captain Zhao's harbor. And he's just like, Zuko's like, I don't need to listen to you, Captain Zhao. And then he's like, it's Commander now. And so he's definitely been promoted. And you get to see that this guy he's kind of a dickhead.
He kind of is. And you know what? Remember who the voice is of Commander Zhao?
Yeah, it's Lucius Malfoy.
For the Harry Potter, for the Potterheads.
Yeah, for the Potterheads. But yeah, so he realizes that it's the whole harbor is under his command now, and he's been promoted to commander. And you can kind of sense there's a lot of things around Commander Zhao. So like one, you can sense that he's just all about power.
Yes.
He doesn't respect Zuko, that he's the son of the Fire Lord, because he just thinks he's disgraced. And so you can see how much he's just like, what are you doing here? Tell me. Like, he doesn't talk to Zuko like he's a prince. He talks to him like he's just a traitor.
Right.
And that's the kind of...
Ooh, that's really good. And we kind of like get the vibe that he's like the real enemy sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like Commander Zhao, like we get more of a sense that Zuko, he's just a teenager trying to get the Avatar, trying to restore his honor. Yeah. Like that's like the vibe. Uncle Iroh's very like soft in the first part of this episode. So it's just kind of like he's more of like, the hard kind of enemy sort of person. Like we immediately don't like him. You don't like
him
no.
right away. Yeah, you don't like him. And you know what is kind of interesting is he does pay respects to Uncle Iroh.
He does. He calls him General.
He calls him like the Great General. Or something, and then Uncle Iroh says that he's retired. He's a retired general.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting because you see that this guy that has no respect, that has command over, I think he says in it, he says, I have command over 100 ships here at this harbor.
Right.
Respects Uncle Iroh, but has zero respect for Zuko. And he just looks at Zuko as this punk kid that has no respect for the Fire Nation, has no honor.
Right. And we'll never be able to get that honor back. You know what?
I do have a feeling that he's been a high-ranking general, because I get this vibe that he was there when Zuko and the Fire Lord, his dad, had an Agni Kai, because that's how he talks about it. He's like, all this time and you still don't know respect, you know, and he's just kind of like, it doesn't sound like it's like he's heard stories of what happened to Zuko. He must have been maybe in that war meeting, and when they had the Agni Kai.
Right. And we don't even know that he had an Agni Kai, Zuko had an Agni Kai with his father. We don't know yet.
But, you know, he disrespected.
But like, we do know that the reason for the scar on his face, that's where, because Commander Zhao says something where we're like, oh, he had a battle with another fire bender, and that's the reason for his scar. Because I'm jumping the gun a little bit. The camera like shoots over like after that thing that Commander Zhao says, and shoots over to the scar and just like focuses on that. So it's just like, oh, the scar was definitely from another firebender. Like, that's the reason.
Yeah, you know what I just thought about with you saying that is that, you know, the Fire Nation seems so big, and so there's so many, you know, it's like a corporate business. There's generals and the captains and all this stuff. And
correct. There's promotions, there's levels, hierarchy.
There's all these levels, and it's just such a big nation that's expanding that you get the idea that it's expanding. And Zuko has to live with his shame everywhere he goes because everybody knows that it's this kid. They might just see like paintings of the royal family, right? But like Zuko has this thing on his face. That's the first thing you notice. So like, you know. So even if you weren't there, kind of know, you know that's
Prince Zuko.
Prince Zuko, because of this big scar on his face. So he just has to live with that shame and that just that embarrassment everywhere he goes,
which is the whole drive to the reason he needs to find the Avatar. And that's where we find out that General Zhao, for some reason, he's just like, this task is so much grander than you, Zuko. You know, like, step to the side, like, it's the Avatar we're talking about. Obviously, you're not capable.
Well, he doesn't know at first. What? He just knows that their ship's damaged, and he's like curious.
Right. Like, that's true. That's true. We could talk about that. Like at first, after they get to the harbor, they go and talk with General Zhao.
He invites him for a drink.
For some tea. Well, no, actually, he doesn't invite him. Zuko is like trying to protect, and Uncle Iroh's like, I'll try to help protecting the fact that their ship was damaged, and they're trying to hide the fact that it was damaged by the Avatar.
Well, Zuko is trying to hide that fact.
Zuko is definitely more so trying to hide that fact, and General Zhao is poking and poking and poking, and so then Uncle Iroh's just like breaks up their, like, I don't know, some sort of bickering contest going on with them. By like, do you have tea? And so then they go back and they get tea for General Iroh, Uncle Iroh, and Zuko and Commander Zhao are talking with one another on these like throne looking things.
You know what I just thought about too is once they get onto the dock with the boats and stuff, Uncle Iroh goes, something. I wonder how. Or he's saying something out loud, and then he's like, the Avatar, and Zuko's like, don't say that name here. He doesn't want anyone to know. He does not. And I get this feeling that Uncle Iroh does want people to know.
Really?
That they had this run-in with the Avatar. Because, and this is like deep, but I think that he's planting seeds. And he knows like how fast like gossip spreads. And so if people are like, oh my gosh, is it? Like they're saying that they found the Avatar. Maybe the Avatar. And so it gives people hope. And so that's how Uncle Iroh is like kind of spreading some hope from the very beginning, because he doesn't seem to be bothered that the Avatar, and he's just like, you know, the Avatar is like the biggest threat to the Fire Nation, and he's kind of happy about it.
Interesting. Well, because I'm like jumping to the end, but as we know, we know the Avatar is what brings balance. So we will probably in the future have our like own Uncle Iroh Dragon of the West like full on episode, because we have so many thoughts and opinions about
Uncle
Iroh.
Okay, and so that's kind of where that scene is, and then we jump back to Aang and Katara and Sokka, and we have another big introduction to a huge pivotal character.
Yes.
Monk Gyatso.
Yes, yeah. Monk Gyatso. So we learn about Monk Gyatso initially from a statue of him. They land at the air temple, and Aang's like, "Oh, Katara and Sokka, I want you to meet Monk Gyatso," and then it goes into a flashback.
Yeah.
And so we learn about
an
Monk
emotional
Gyatso.
flashback.
An emotional flashback. We learned that Monk Gyatso was his essential teacher of airbending. He was his like master, and he's the one that taught him airbending. We learned that there were a whole bunch of monks at this air temple, and that's where he was learning. At the Southern Air Temple was where he was learning airbending, right. And where he was before he must have ran away and was trapped. Yeah. And so, I thought it was something that I thought was really interesting. Is that Monk Gyatso? We learned that he tells Aang that normally people don't find out that they're the Avatar before they're 16. Yeah. And so in this setback scene, Aang is just like so kind of like disturbed, distraught, like there's a lot of heaviness to him, and he's going and confiding with Monk Gyatso and wanting to just talk to him about his feelings. So they have a really good relationship.
Yeah,
he's
great relationship.
Able to like confide in him, talk to him about his feelings. Yeah. And Monk Gyatso is like reassuring him, like, well, you know, I'm like surprised that the monks, like, there's reasons why the monks don't, you're not supposed to know that you are the Avatar until you are 16. Yeah. And he was like telling him how, like, the monks weren't essentially supposed to tell them. Yeah. Or something like that.
Yeah. And I have a lot of thoughts of why they did tell him.
Yeah. Could be a lot of theories.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories. And so I thought it was interesting, that they find this statue of Monk Gyatso, and Aang, how he tells Katara and Sokka is that he was the best airbender in the entire world.
Really? That's what he says?
That's what he says. And so I don't know if that's like a little, you know, when you're a little kid and you have like somebody you look up to and they're the best at that. So it might be, so I don't know. I don't know if it really is just like this little kid point of view of Monk Gyatso, or maybe he really is like the best.
I mean, he could be.
He could be, because his job is to kind of teach the Avatar. Right. And so, so I thought that was interesting. And then in the flashback, you know, Aang's just talking to him like you would a friend. And he's just like, what if they made a mistake? And he says the only mistake that they made was telling him before he was 16. So, you know what I think might be happening is that the Fire Nation at this point is really like just already executing their plan. And so they've probably never seen another nation try to do this, and they're like, we got to tell him right now. Right. We got to tell Aang that he, you know, and so.
Interesting.
And so the cool thing is that I don't think Monk Gyatso would be on the outskirts of knowing that they're doing that. He would know that. Right. But he is still willing to wait 4 more years.
He was.
So that Aang can be a kid.
Right.
It's just too much to hold as a kid. Like all this responsibility. Too much to hold.
And it shows in Aang's countenance, you know? It shows in just like the measure of responsibility. Yeah. It's kind of what we were talking about in the other episodes with Aang waking up and wanting to penguin slide and stuff. Right. Like, he's just such a kid and he wants to play and he doesn't want responsibility. And like what I said, the other one, but like you have the biggest responsibility in the world. So that's interesting. Yeah. It is.
I want you to talk about in this flashback. Monkiato also talks about the Air Temple Sanctuary. Yes. So he says he's telling Aang in this flashback that when he's ready, he'll meet somebody. They'll reveal themselves to him when he's ready. Yes. In the Air Temple Sanctuary. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
I would love to. Well, yes.
Or do you have another point before that?
I do have another point before we go into that.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think it just goes to show how much Monkiato is, he must be just this masterful person. Yeah. You know, because he has the part in it's towards the end before this one like thing he says. Yeah. But towards the end he says like has a serious conversation with Aang, and then he's like, are you gonna help me with these these like lemon or like these custards or whatever he's making, these pies? And then they throw it off the balcony onto these other monks. So he's just like
that are meditating.
And so he just goes to show like all this flashback scene, so short, so small, but it just shows so much of him as a master, who Aang was essentially around like the majority of his time, most likely, before he was in the iceberg. And so it goes to show that he's like lighthearted, and that there's balance with that. There's like meditation, there's time for meditation, there's time for seriousness, and there's time for playfulness, you know? And he just like goes and illustrates that like so well, especially like Aang's just confiding him, being like, did they make a mistake? Like, like this is so much responsibility. And then he's like, are you gonna help me with this?
Yeah, the whole time he's making these cakes.
And
with the idea to throw on these.
Exactly. Like, let's have some fun, you know? And he just like recognizes that he's a child, and it's just, it's so impactful to hear that as like a teacher, you know, like somebody who's a master, and I think is just so important in every part of life.
Yeah, that really is important. I'm glad that you made that point, because as far as just like fighting, like the fight world, you know, like combat sports and stuff, I think those are like the best teachers, and they're the best fighters, or the people that understand that there needs to be balance. Right. There is time for when you need to be serious, and there are times when it's like you need to play. And the masters are the ones that are like know how to move up and down that scale, right, for what's needed, so that they stay balanced and in flow. You know, because sometimes when you're just pushing, you're hitting this wall, and you can't get over it because it requires a more feminine approach, right, opposed to a more action-based, like masculine approach, right. And those are the real masters. Like I'll walk into a gym, and it's always the person that's like, oh, this, it's all about fighting. It's about this. And there's like a lot of people in the fight world. I'm getting off on this tangent.
No, keep going with it.
There's a lot of people that in the fight world that their life isn't balanced, and their fighting is affected by it.
100%.
And they just don't really understand like the whole scope of everything. Right. Like defense, offense, right. when to transition into what, you know, how to, all of that. So thank you for making that point, babe. I think that's really important. Monkiato, he definitely shows that he's a child at heart.
Right. Yeah. And that's important. Yeah, and it's important.
And he's a great master.
And he's a great master.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there's another great master.
Yes, another great master. All right. So back to what you were saying before, my love.
Give me your thoughts.
So in that flashback, before we get the playful side of Macchiato, he says something where that when it's time that he will meet someone that will help him in regards to the avatar, being the avatar in the air temple sanctuary.
Yes.
And so there we go back into, after this flashback, Aang is like, okay, I need to go to the air temple sanctuary.
Yeah.
So we go to the door of the air temple sanctuary. He needs to airbend in order to open the door, which, by the way, my head, I'm like, how did the Fire Nation get through that door?
Yeah.
It must have been a back door or something.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, I don't think they get in there. I don't think they get into the actual sanctuary.
Right? You don't? Oh, yeah. Was that a different part?
Yeah, that was just remember, because okay, yeah, no, yeah, they don't get into that part.
Okay.
So that, I mean, there's this door.
There's this door. They have to airbend through it.
Yeah.
And they go through it. It's really dark, and then they discover that there's all these statues. And they're like, oh, look, there's an airbender. Oh, there's a waterbender. There's an earthbender. There's a firebender.
Yeah.
And we learned that all of these statues are the avatars, the past avatars. And so we understand that there's this theory. And so, again, we have Sokka being like, what's this weirdness? What's going on? And Katara is just like, oh, this is like the order of the avatars. And we go into talking about reincarnation and the theory of the fact that the avatars are being reincarnated. So once an avatar dies, they are reincarnated into a new avatar, which is, it goes into this order of the benders.
Yeah, the avatar cycle.
The avatar cycle. Yes. So we learned that the last avatar was a firebender, and so that's the next bender in the cycle is air, which is Aang.
Yeah.
And so we learn about that. We learned that about the last avatar, that he was a firebender. And then they hear a noise, and so they quickly hide behind the statues.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, there's a Fire Nation person.
Yeah.
There's somebody in the
Fire Nation.
Yeah. And who do we find? Who do we get to meet at first?
we get an introduction to Momo.
Yes.
Which I have an interesting theory. I'll save it till the end.
You will?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll save it to the very end.
All right.
But there's theories about who Momo is. Yeah. But
I think we should go into it.
Okay. I'll just talk about it. So I just, being a nerd that loves Avatar, I was reading different theories, and one of the theories is that because it would just make perfect sense, right? They're talking about reincarnation in there. There's a flashback that happens where Macchiato is like, you'll meet somebody that will help you along your journey the whole way. And then we're introduced to Momo, a lemur, this flying lemur. And there's theories that are going around that that's Macchiato reincarnated.
Oh, it's so good.
Wouldn't that be so awesome? Seriously,
no,
because
it would be.
Then, his friend, and I'll jump ahead just a little bit, but then they talk about how in this show, Avatar: The Last Airbender, they say some friendships can transcend lifetimes. But yeah, I won't jump to that. But yeah, that would be so cool, right? If
that would be amazing.
That was Macchiato.
And honestly, it makes sense.
It makes so much sense.
It's kind of like a theory that obviously isn't said, isn't confirmed.
Yeah.
But
it might be. I don't know.
It might be.
Yeah.
But
it's not obvious at all.
It isn't too obvious. Yeah. But when you said that, because I had never heard it until that scene came, and Beaver was like, oh, have you heard about this theory, babe? And then it just opened my eyes to just everything.
Yeah.
And even just like the noises and sounds when Momo was on the screen.
Yeah, it was like this airbending kind of noise.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like the same noises in the flashbacks to Aang. It's the same noises when they see the statue. It's just very aligned.
Yeah.
It's not like an outrageous theory. Yeah. It just seems right.
Yeah, and Momo's very playful.
He's playful. He's fun.
Yeah. So here's another interesting thing that goes a little deeper that was actually in that theory that I watched. So so they realize it's a lemur. Sokka views it like, oh, food. Like, let's get some food.
And they attack him.
And Aang's just like, no, yeah. And so Momo starts running and jumps out this window. And you see Aang jumps out the window. Doesn't even think twice.
Right.
And that's just kind of shows you, airbenders, they really have no fear to live in these crazy places because they can just use their airbending if they fall. But yeah, so why people speculate that this can be Monkey Otso reincarnated is because, do you remember when he jumps out the window and where Momo leads him?
Momo leads him to Monkey Otso.
Yeah.
Which is really sad.
I know, really sad, really emotional. That's what I was saying. Really, like, there's so many parts where it's like, this is really emotional. And so, and I'll say this, that Katara and Sokka are finding relics of the Fire Nation being there,
right? And
they're covering it up. They're scared to tell Aang, but they know that this has happened. They don't want to tell Aang, and so
the reason why the air temple is so vacant, there's not like hardly anything, any animals, no people. The plants are all
no really
dead.
Signs of life anymore.
Yeah, no signs of life.
And that's why it's interesting that Momo shows up.
Yeah,
but basically, like, Momo, Aang's following Momo, and it leads him to the room with a bunch of dead firebenders and then a skeleton, and he knows it's Monkey Otso by the necklace that he's wearing is Monkey Otso's.
Yeah, which is really sad. It hits him all right there that he's like, Monkey Otso, and then he just immediately starts crying. Sokka comes in and he's just like knows that something's wrong. He's like, it's okay, like, we don't have to eat him. I was just playing around. And then he realizes, like, oh, he discovered that the Fire Nation attacked the air temple, and the reason why everyone's dead or gone is because of the Fire Nation.
The Fire Nation came through and devastated the place. And so I think that's when you see Aang really finally accept that something happened, because all throughout, I mean, even before this, he asked Sokka if he'll play this airbending game with him, and so he knows that it's vacant. No, he
doesn't ask Sokka.
Oh, what?
So he might have seen it before, but they're trying to cheer up Aang a little bit, and Sokka's like, you want to play some, tell me about that airball game. And so they have Aang cheer him, or they cheer up Aang a little bit, with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And so I think that at that point it cuts kind of, so you're getting all these things unraveling, and then it cuts back to Zuko, Uncle Iroh, and Commander Zhao. And so the interesting part is that you get to see how good of a general and leader and freaking terrorist or whatever Commander Zhao is because while he has them drinking tea, and I just feel like Uncle Iroh knew this was going to happen. He wanted them to know this. And so while they're drinking tea with him, some of Commander Zhao's people come back in, and they're like, okay, we did what you wanted. We interrogated the whole crew, Zuko's crew, and they confirmed that Zuko had the Avatar and lost him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it goes to show that he is a strategic and good commander,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll get to the bottom of things.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's just more like disrespect to Zuko. He's just like,
Right.
so you had the Avatar in your possession,
Right.
and I can't even understand how you'd let him get away. You're so weak. You're such a disgrace. And he's saying, he's telling Zuko that he's a disgrace and all this stuff. And then, so this is the first time that we see that Zuko challenges him to an Agni Kai.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just so interesting. You talking about that made me just like think also about Uncle Iroh, because Zuko's never been in these like war strategy type of like people planning
the politics of it.
And so Uncle Iroh's just sitting there just like, I'm just gonna drink my tea, you know, like I already know what's happening. He's very calm and confident and believes also,
but he kind of looks aloof, like he
does,
which is
he does. You even made that comment like, Uncle Iroh kind of sucks in this show.
He's like really,
but I think it's all strategy.
Yeah,
it is all strategy as it goes to show towards the end of the show. But
can I say one more thing about the like before the Agni Kai?
Yes.
Okay, so before the Agni Kai, so it's Zuko that challenges General Zhao, and you just kind of get, he's this like commander that demands respect. You can see it with all his men. So you just kind of get the feel that he's a great firebender. And the thing that I thought was interesting is, so he challenges Commander Zhao to a Agni Kai, and like Uncle Iroh, like being that strategic, you know, like has been. He's just like, he's not like, Zuko, don't do this. No, no. But he goes, do you remember what happened last time you dueled a master? And he's like, I'll never forget. And so he just
and that's where it cuts to like his scar.
It's just like this mental. I think it's like this emotional, mental. Like he's been training him over the years, and he wants to just remind him like, last time, like, okay, are you ready this time?
Right.
Because you don't have to live like this banished, like disgraced prince.
Right.
You're facing a master this time. You're older. I've been teaching you. I've been training you.
Are you ready?
Are you? Do you remember what happened?
Right.
And he's like, yeah. And he's like, almost like, so don't let it happen again. You know. And so that's where he's like egging on in this very sly, like non like. So Zuko is making his own decisions. But it's Uncle Iroh that wants him to, because he must feel like he's like. He's ready now, you know, like.
Exactly. And that's why I think Uncle Iroh, I don't know, this is just like the sort of type of person I am, is when I'm like scared or worried, I like want to take control of things.
Yeah.
But he is just like acting
master.
Like aloof.
Yeah.
Like he's like acting like, he's like, okay, whatever happens. Like, yep, you're going to go check and talk to all these guys. Like, whatever, you go do your thing. Yep, Zuko's going to be probably challenging you, trying to one-up you, whatever. But you know what? Let him do his thing. I'm just going to enjoy my tea over here.
Yeah.
I'm a general. I know what to do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking that in his head, in my head.
He's giving Zuko this opportunity to see how it's really done.
Right.
You know, he's letting him make his own decisions.
Right.
He's letting him
confidence
lose his
in
temper.
Him. Yeah.
And
he believes in him.
Yeah, he believes in him.
Which is like making me emotional.
Let's go. Because it is. It is. Oh my gosh. The freaking character development in this freaking show. Let's go.
It's so just sweet. It's so sweet.
And it's someone that actually loves him.
Yes.
Which he's probably not used to at all.
No.
And, you know, something that is interesting is that he's just like, I think that Commander Zhao, like I said, he's kind of a prick. But there's a lot of truth to what he's saying to Zuko. He's like, you're a banished prince. Like, you think that capturing the Avatar is gonna like, your dad doesn't love you, or else he would have invited you back from banishment already.
Right.
Like, and he's like saying this, and it's making Zuko, and he's just still a kid. He's like, no. Right. He's like, my dad, like, once I capture, he just wants the approval from his dad the whole time. And that is, oh my gosh, so crazy. He wants this approval from his dad, but he actually has a real
father figure.
And Uncle Iroh knows that he wants to be that father figure because of that's what he needs. He needs that the most, and he just can't be like, your dad's a loser, you know? He can't just be like that because he'll be like, my dad's not a loser, you're a loser. Right. He just lets him come to his own conclusions about life. It's freaking, oh my God.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's just so good. So, after that, he challenges to him Agni Kai. It cuts back.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cutbacks between Avatar, Gang, and Zuko.
Yeah.
And so it cuts back to Avatar. And he's crying. He's really sad. And then he goes into the Avatar state. And so I thought that was really, really interesting. To see that when he goes into the Avatar state and he's at the air temple, that all the other temples and all the other nations, so the water, earth, and fire nations start to glow, and they get recognition that, oh, the Avatar is alive.
Yeah.
Once he gets put into this Avatar state.
Yeah.
And Katara mentioned something that, Katara says something like, oh, it's he's connected to his Avatar spirit or something like that. And so then we get to know that, oh, there's some sort of special spirit or spirit world, maybe something to do with being aligned with the Avatar spirits, because once he gets into the Avatar state, not only do we see that all the other temples shoot off this light or something like that, where they know that the Avatar is alive, but all the other avatars in the Air Temple Sanctuary, their eyes start to glow.
All the statues are glowing as well.
And Katara isn't with Sokka and Aang. Aang, as he's getting to the Avatar state, starts to have like air all around him. Sokka is like blowing away. Katara is in the sanctuary. The eyes start to glow and then goes over and is like, oh, Aang must be in the Avatar state. Something's wrong with Aang. And so
right. They're connected. Katara and Aang are super connected.
They are.
And if you've noticed, like, she's the one that kind of calms him down or triggers the Avatar state with him. So it's like this powerful emotion is what triggers it. Oh, I did want to mention, too, is that with these statues, there's no, like, names telling you who the statue is. And I wanted to mention that before he chases Momo, Aang, he's like locked in on the statue of Avatar Roku, which was the firebending avatar right before him. And he's just like, this is Avatar Roku. And Katara and Sokka are like, how do you know that? And he's like, I don't know how I know it. So he just like has this connection to the immediate Avatar that was right before him.
And that was our first like initial start.
And so they're in that sanctuary. And then, fast forward to where we're talking about is that he goes into the Avatar state, and you can tell it's just like triggered by him being emotional about Monkey Otso being dead, and Katara is just like, I'm gonna try to calm him down, and Sokka's like, I think Sokka knows that Katara can, because he's like, do it before he blows everything off this mountainside.
Yeah.
So that's how powerful like the Avatar state is. And then Sokka, it's Katara's voice, because as he's like getting more powerful, he's like rising,
right?
And then when Katara's talking to him, he's coming back down, and you can see things that are they're going back to normal, and he's kind of like coming back to himself. And this is where I really feel like they just click, where it's like their family.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because he talks him down, they're all there for each other. Aang just finally comes to this realization that his people are gone, and he comes back down, and I wrote this down, but Katara goes, Sokka and I we're your family now. And then Sokka's like, Katara and I aren't gonna let anything happen to you. And so that's when they like really click, and that they're a family sweet. Now. Yeah. And Aang just finally accepts that he is the last Airbender, and his people are gone.
No. Yeah. When I think about that, I also think about, because we've been talking a lot about feminine and masculine energy, and how Katara really plays that role, that motherly feminine energy role. Yeah. And I think that's so important, and it just plays in the part of how well they are as a gang, how well they are as a family. Yeah. You need that, like, those roles, those energies to be balanced, and that's why they work so well with each other. All of them bring in these balance of energies, or these mixture of energies that really play and help each other. Yeah. And yes, they are kids. Yes, they are just like growing up together. Yeah. But also, like you said, they like not only with these energies, but they just really come to rely on each other. Yeah. They're vulnerable with each other. They're just excited. All the things. all the things that I don't really know how to articulate. But it's just so good.
Yeah, you're right. And you know, I feel like they're brought together too by this mutual feeling of loss. They've all lost something. Interesting. And that's like when Aang finally just realizes like he's lost, like his family, like that's where it's like, okay, like they really bond. Right. Is because they've all lost and are able to support each other and like kind of give each other that shoulder to cry on, and vice versa when the other person needs it. And you see that they're like, okay, we're in this together. Right. Like, we have only each other now.
I love that. Yeah. It's not so much in like a trauma bonding sort of bond. I like that you said more of like this feeling of loss, and they come together to lean on each other. They give each other hope. Yeah. You know, and it's not so much of like misery with each other. It's hopeful. It's excitement, and they know of like a better. Right. There can be better. More of life to come, which goes into play of how like young they are and spirited.
And Aang's like the biggest sign of hope.
He is the Avatar.
He's the Avatar, and that's why, going back to Uncle Iroh, that's why I think he's like, he gets off the ship and he's like the Avatar, and you know, and he's like trying to have people know that they had this run-in with the Avatar, because then it'll spread, which is spreading hope.
So interesting. I never thought about that insight, and I love that. And we get quickly, just like all that Zuko thinks about is like, no, Avatar is like the only way.
He is his hope too.
He is right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The Avatar is Zuko's hope too, but it's in this weird way where he thinks that if he captures him, it's hope for everyone. Everyone is like starting to feel this hope, and everything. But yeah, let's jump. And so it cuts back to the scene where they're actually like
in the Agni Kai.
Yeah, in the Agni Kai, which is just I get this kind of idea that it's like a fight to the death almost. Yeah. Like you don't just throw around Agni Kai. Like an Agni Kai is something.
Really.
I don't think so. Okay. Because so we jump back to Zuko, and you know, you can see he's they both take their shirts off and they're ready to fight. And
it's cool.
It is so cool. Yeah, it is so dope.
Cool. Agni Kai, the music in the background.
It's always the music. The music is so awesome every time there's an Agni Kai.
So good.
Yeah, I won't jump all the way to the last season, but Agni Kais are cool. So you jump to this, and it really is. It's such a cool battle, because this is, like I said in the beginning, this is the first time we see that actual like kind of bending at each other. Like you've seen like little this and that, and this is like an actual battle that lasts a while between benders. Yeah, and it's powerful. You can see right away that General Zhao is very powerful. But Uncle Iroh is just reminding him to use the fundamentals and the basics that he taught him. And
he's reminding Zuko.
Yeah, reminding Zuko. And it's a good battle because Zuko struggles.
You can tell in his... Like, you can tell that Commander Zhao is fighting a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Like a young kid.
Yeah. But then plot twist.
Yeah.
Zuko actually... it's a long battle, and Zuko actually comes up on top.
Right.
And he is about to... Oh, what?
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
I want to... Before we get to that part, I want to say what Uncle Iroh says.
Yeah.
Because you're right. He says focus. He really wants him to focus on the foundations.
Yeah.
And he says, remember that part where he was like, he's like, basic Zuko, break his root.
Yeah.
That's what he says to Zuko in the middle of his fight, because like you can tell that Commander Zhao is kind of winning essentially this Agni Kai.
Right.
And Uncle Iroh's just there being like, Zuko, basics, break his root. Yeah. And what it reminded me of is, of course, like the root chakra. Yeah. And the root chakra is like your safety chakra. It's like your grounding chakra, which is earthbending. Yeah. So it's just interesting knowing Uncle Iroh, why he specifically says break his root, break his foundation, his ground. And that earthbending, it's like the earth chakra is essentially that like root chakra. Yeah. And the fire chakra is in the stomach, that power. Yeah. Like with firebending is in the breath, it's like that power within the stomach. But this is all just reminders. Well, not reminders, but this is foretelling in the future of when they talk about the chakra episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But I just thought that was...
And who Uncle Iroh is.
is.
He's a real master.
He is a real master. And so I just thought it was interesting because Zuko was on the ground. He had his back to the ground, and he was like almost about to get like another burn to the face by Commander Zhao, or killed possibly, because his back was on the ground. But he uses this like way to get out of it. And I don't know if it's an earthbending technique.
Doesn't really look like a firebending technique.
It kind of looks like an airbending technique, honestly, to be honest.
It looks like an airbending technique. And, he's just listening to what Uncle Iroh is teaching him. And so he might just be like, oh, I've never seen this, but this must be an advanced move. But it's no firebenders know these moves except for Uncle Iroh, who's teaching it to Zuko.
Ooh, that is very true. Yeah. That is very true. He gets up and he's able...
And he sweeps the leg.
He sweeps the leg!
He's like, oh my gosh. Uncle Iroh. And there's so many like parallels to freaking Karate Kid. It's like sweep the leg.
What's his name?
Miyagi.
Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah. So that is dope. Yeah.
But continue on with what you were saying in regards to Zuko then actually gets Commander Zhao.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So okay. So they're just like you just get to see like what the mindset of the Fire Nation is. Like all of Commander Zhao's shots are so just like anger, power, and that kind of is what gets Zuko to be able to kind of trip him up and get on top. And when he's on top in his stance, Commander Zhao is just like, finish it. Like he just wants him to do it because he like got outbested by a 16-year-old. Right. And this is where you get to see like who Zuko is that this guy's been basically holding him captive all day and just like saying you're a disgrace, you're like the Fire Nation, you're a disgrace to the entire Fire Nation, all this stuff. and Zuko does a fire blast, but just by his head, not killing him. And how Commander Zhao takes it is like, you're still just this weak kid. And that's what I feel like Zuko, it just shows who his character is that he's just like a driven individual, but you get the sense that he's a little different from some of these other people in the Fire Nation. And that's maybe why he doesn't fit in. Possibly. But okay, so that happens. So he spares him. He shows mercy on Commander Zhao, and Commander Zhao just does the most like disgraceful loser
thing
type thing
in a battle. Yeah. In a Agni Kai, Zuko turns away. Yeah. His back is to Commander Zhao.
He says, "I'll spare you this time," but he's like, I won't hold back if you get in my way again. So he believes in mercy. He also is a very driven individual. Turns his back to walk away. He won the battle, which is probably he's just like, holy crap, I am not this little kid anymore. I just beat a commander. I just beat a commander in an Agni Kai. And so he does this. Commander Zhao does, just a no and just being a man, he gets up and tries to blast Zuko with a fire blast from behind. And who's there
to step in?
And it's just grabs him. Uncle Iroh grabs Commander Zhao before his fire can actually really.
Uncle Iroh.
Yeah. So he grabs him and without even any. Without trying at all, just throws him to the ground. And I think that this is so with Katara, Aang, and Sokka, them saying we're there for each other, that was their big moment in this episode where it's holy crap, okay, they're a family now. But Zuko and Uncle Iroh's big moment was that moment when he beat him. And then, this whole day, Commander Zhao's just been you're a banished prince. You're just no good. The Fire Nation doesn't want you. We don't want you. And then Uncle Iroh, when he throws him to the ground, he's like, you disgraced yourself. You're the great Commander Zhao. And he's like, wow. And you try to do this disgraceful, dishonorable thing in this battle.
He says that even in exile, my nephew is more honorable than you.
Bars. Freaking bars.
Honorable.
Yeah, and I think that has to be a huge moment for Zuko to hear that because
100%.
Iroh's always believed this about Zuko, but Zuko just feels when you're a kid, no one can tell you anything. You know, if you feel like you messed up or whatever, you just feel it so deep, because you don't have experience or training. And so to hear and to have that evidence that I beat this guy and I'm a better person than this dude.
He knows he is too, but then when his uncle actually says it, then you're like, oh. And he even asked that, did you mean that, uncle?
Yeah.
He's like, did you mean that, uncle?
Yeah.
And it kind of goes into kind of their relationship, even the firebending maybe culture, that Fire Nation culture, which we can relate to in regards to culture.
Yeah, we can.
In regards to Uncle Iroh, Zuko just is just did you mean that, uncle?
Yeah. He just needs to pray.
He did you mean that, uncle? Yeah, he needs to feel. Exactly.
His confidence has been wiped away from him. And
then Uncle Iroh's just I told you, my ginseng tea is my favorite.
Yeah, it just goes back to this
He doesn't acknowledge that, oh yeah, I said that you're more honorable than him. He's oh yeah, my ginseng tea is my favorite. He doesn't say it, but Zuko knows too.
It's this also just kind of the student teacher relationship, and he's just I don't need to tell you, you're coming up with these conclusions by yourself, and you just beat the Commander Zhao.
Right.
So one thing that I wanted to say is that Zuko did. I wrote this point is that so when Uncle Iroh caught him when Commander Zhao, he threw him. and Zuko realized what he did, he tried to come back and attack him, and you just
I didn't notice that.
So he comes back and he tries to attack him, and Uncle Iroh stops him, and he says, "Zuko, do not taint your victory." Yeah, and so you just tell that he's just such an honorable, old school general type of teacher,
right?
And he's just trying to teach like Zuko a different way,
right?
Yeah,
you go to show that there's more to Uncle Iroh, because the beginning of the episode, like we said, we were just like, Uncle Iroh sucks.
He's dumb.
What?
He's
dumb. He's not really like doing anything. But then you realize there's strategy.
Yeah, it's all part of the plan.
It's all part of the plan. And he just is. He's smart.
He is smart.
He's smart. He's not only smart. He's strong.
Yeah.
You come in and like you said, he barely like
used any
energy, and you really get to show the size difference too. Yeah. Uncle Iroh's small, but he uses that power in such a very just like easy, fluid way that you know that he's strong, he's smart, he knows how to defeat. He's a general. He has experience.
He's a master.
Yeah,
he's a real master.
So I really like that you said that connection between Aang's their family, and then there's Uncle Iroh and Zuko and their family, and
and just kind of how you're rooting for Zuko almost like.
He's like
he at this point he's the antagonist that
or
he's
he has
the one,
been the antagonist.
and he's looking to capture Aang and stuff, but you're just like, when he has that win, you're like, yes, like good job.
You're like, yes.
So I'll take us to the last scene. Is something that I thought was cool, is it goes back to the Avatar gang, and he's talking to Momo, Aang. He's talking to Momo, and Appa's right there, and he says, "You, me, and Appa are the only things left of this place. We have to stick together."
Yeah, I love that.
And they basically really at that point begin their journey.
Yeah, they do. We also start to mention right before he says that last part, he realizes he's the last airbender, and he asks Katara, like, how is Roku supposed to help me? And I wonder if are they in front of the statue at this point? Yes, they're in front of the statue at this point, and then Momo comes and brings Sokka food.
Oh, yeah.
And it has that air noise.
Yeah, it has that air noise.
We're like, oh, is that another hint to, is he Monk Yatza?
Yeah, and it's funny that Momo's just like, this whole time, Sokka's just talking about how hungry he is and everything. And then Momo brings him food. Like food. Here you go. Like
he quickly hides with Aang, because he's like, I don't want you to be eaten by you, Sokka.
Yeah. So they set off again on Appa, and the last part really got me. The last scene. Ooh. The last scene is them flying away, and you can see kind of like the Southern Air Temple disappearing in the clouds, and instead of like at the front where Aang always is, he's on the back where like the padding and stuff is, and he's just like watching, he's looking at it, and it's like disappearing. And that is like
the last scene,
and it kind of just foretells like he's putting this like
behind him.
He's really like, this is real.
I'm the last airbender. Oh, that like kind of makes me sad. Even though we know Avatar the last airbender.
But so that's this week's breakdown of the Southern Air Temple. Such a great episode. And I've had a lot of fun, babe, with
me too,
this
baby.
episode with you. So thank you.
Thanks for listening.
To the listeners.